for the Michigan Small Business Restart Program. And the state, based on the work we did on relief, asked us to pick up 2 additional counties. And so we picked up, in addition to the 4 that I mentioned, we also then had Midland and Aranac County as well for the Restart Program. The Isabella share, I was just checking that because I thought somebody might ask, was about $877,000 just for Isabella County businesses as part of that overall distribution. And so we were able to get a lot of money out in these 2 programs. What's not in this report is the survival grant program, which was about 55% the size of the Restart Program. And that was in January, so that'll be included in our next report. But if we could then go back, let's flip back a page to page 3 there, or 2 pages. There we go. Yep. So the metrics. And so grant total in terms of grants distributed yep, that's the one in the box, or the second line in the blue box. The grand total of grants distributed in the area was over $4.2 million in 2020. And that would compare with a typical year of 2019. Our grant distribution was $330,000. So, and that's a pretty typical year. So 4.2 million was a very high watermark for us. In addition, if you look at some of the other factors of last year in this blue box where our metrics are, in a typical year, and I looked at 2019, we would typically call on, do about 135 business calls, on different calls. And sometimes some businesses would receive more than one call, depending on the situation. But typically we try to touch base with each of the businesses we call on at least once a year. Well, in 2020, we did 542, way up. And why is that? Well, because with all these grants that we distributed, and with all of the help that people needed, we had a lot of these businesses calling us and asking for additional help. And so we were able to make those additional visits, again, online, but they were still counted as visits. And we did over 1,200 company assists. So, you might have a situation where you're helping them with the grant, or you're helping them with a talent issue, with job placement and so on. So each of those would, since there are different things, would count as an assist. So over 1,200 company assists in 2020, prior year 309. So you can see that we were really, really busy. We don't have the biggest staff, and we were very, very busy all throughout the year. Now, when I mentioned the 15 organizations, so let me name a couple other ones. So the Right Place in Grand Rapids has 31 staff. Lansing Leap, 21 staff. They're pretty typical. Ann Arbor Spark, or Southwest Michigan First, Detroit Economic Growth. Many of these are 30, 40, and higher staff levels, and we have 5. We had the smallest staff of the 15 organizations, but we were able to deliver the same level of service. And often we're one of the first organizations to complete the grant distribution. And so we got very high marks from the MEDC for that. So let's move forward here a little bit and go to page, let's go to 6. And these are some comments that from some of our counterparts: Nicole Wilson from Midland Business Alliance, Stephanie Buffman from the Aranac Economic Development, Jim Wheeler, who runs Greater Gratiot Development, Pam O'Loughlin works for me, but she represents Claire. And then let's look at the next page. And then Bob Balzer from Gladwin. So all of them with really, really complimentary of the work that we did, and working with them and making sure that we got the relief to the right businesses, and did a good job helping our businesses get through a very tough year. 2 really cool quotes, I think, from Jim Holton and Greg, known as Rhino, or Ryan Earson from Cops and Donuts. And I'm just going to read Greg's. The COVID shutdown hit us here at Cops and Donuts at the worst time of the year possible. The rapid work of the MMDC team ensured grant funding arrived at a critical time and helped bridge the gap until PPP funds arrived. It truly helped save our business. So, Greg said it, and Jim said something similar. We heard this again and again and again from businesses that the relief from the grants was critical in them staying afloat. And really, I'll be honest with you folks, when we were looking at the year when we were first finding out about what COVID-19 was and how long it might last, and how long is it going to be before a vaccine's available and all this. I mean, I was very worried about the kind of business losses that we might face. And while we did lose a few, the number that we lost was so much less than I was fearing or anticipating. So I felt really good at how we were able to come through the year. And now we're really coming out. And I'm going to tell you that the number of phone calls that I'm getting and interest in expansions and looking for buildings, it's like it's the phone was ringing off the hook even today. I mean, I'm still here at the office and following up on things that I wasn't able to get finished before 5 o'clock. Very, very busy right now. And I think Rodney and I are going to be able to talk about something that's really cool coming pretty soon, in the Enterprise Park. It's just that we're under an NDA and we can't talk about it, but we're hopefully going to be able to talk about it pretty soon as the company is willing to put out a press release. It's going to be a very cool project in the township. I think, the next 6 pages are really an insert from Business in Focus magazine. So I'm just going to kind of let you read that at your leisure. And really, I think most of the other blurbs that we have here, let's just kind of go to the inside back cover, page 22, if we could. Yeah, all the way, yeah, 22, right? Yep, got it. Okay. So, these are the businesses and the partners that make us be able to do what we do. We are funded, by municipalities and corporate sponsors that have decided to support our mission. And, Union Township has been a very big supporter of us, and we couldn't do it without you. Just to let you know, you see a lot more sponsors there on the list, but the sponsors represent about 30% of our annual revenue. The partners, which are a shorter list, represents about 70%. And you guys are a very, very big and critical part of our funding. Literally, and I need to say this to you, I've been saying this at every one of the reports that I've done elsewhere too, that we could not have gotten through this past year without your support, and we would not have been able to deliver the services that we did for the small businesses that were struggling without your support. It clearly made all the difference. So we were able to help keep them afloat. You've helped keep us afloat and being able to provide those services. On the next page, you've got our executive directors and our board members, and Mark, of course, is a very highly respected, there we go, very highly respected member of our board, and we appreciate his involvement. He's down there on the list, 21 board of directors. So just wanted to kind of go over all of this and give you that overview. I think the biggest story was getting through the year with the COVID-19 shutdown and helping our businesses through. So that's what I tried to focus on tonight. So Mr. Supervisor, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for being a big contributor in our community, and certainly the money that we spend in you and your organization pay us back dividends. So congratulations for all the hard work. Fantastic presentation. Are there any questions for Mr. McBride?
Thanks for helping everybody out, James.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I would just like to comment as a board member that the MMDC under leadership of Mr. McBride did do a tremendous amount of good work. the volume and the quality this year. I mean, if you can imagine going through, I don't know, Jim, 1,000 applications over the various programs and trying to score them and interact with the state agency, and then, ultimately getting money into businesses' hands. It was just a really impressive piece of work that these folks did this year. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we got all set up with ACH. We know all about that. We know most of the transfers were made through ACH. So we're all set up for that now. So, but thank you, Mark, for saying that. And I will say that we are hearing, the governor and the legislature are talking now, trying to get the budget resolved. And I understand they've got about $8 billion that they weren't, with the latest figures, $8 billion to spend. And so we're hearing there's going to be something else coming in terms of a grant program, but just don't know the details yet. So be at least one more before this is over. We're all set up and ready to go.
James, if I could just ask, what is the health of our restaurant businesses in the area?
So the biggest challenge, and I know Jim Holden would say this and others would say it, the biggest challenge they're having right now, they were able to get through. Many of them are having trouble getting some of the food that they've tried to order, so it's not always available. But the biggest problem is the help, getting people back to work. And, I think that there's still people that have not been vaccinated. We still, I feel that we're coming out of this, but at the same time, there's still people getting COVID. And there are people that are reluctant to come back to work. The biggest single thing in terms of talent and getting people back to work, from everything I've been reading lately and hearing, it's the childcare piece that men have largely returned to the workplace, but women who have children at home largely have not. I mean, you can't be, it's not a sweeping thing, but that's largely true. And so I think as we're talking among each other in the economic development community, if we could just do one thing to help with the talent gap, it's if we could figure out how to get the childcare back up and running at full force and allowing women to get back to the workplace, that would be the biggest single thing we could do. But it's getting a little better, but it's getting the workers back. And so that's a big challenge. But, I think the restaurants that have made it through this far, they're going to make it, they're going to make it. So I think that's the good news, is we didn't lose very many, lost a few, but not very many.
I've seen my wages for my employees go up, and the childcare problems too. Like the schools are shutting down daycares for the summer.
Yep.
It's not good.
No. Yep. And the survival grant program, which is not in this, it'll be in the 2021 annual report because it took place in January. That one, we had a 5-day turnaround to get that money out the door. And here locally, we had 1.925 million to distribute for that program. And we decided to have a minimum grant size of $10,000 because we wanted to get that much relief to the restaurants that qualified, and actually almost all the money did go to restaurants. There were a few exceptions to that, but almost all of it did, and they got 10,000 each.
Good.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, with that brings us to second presentation of the evening, and I'm honored to give the floor to our Isabella County Sheriff, Michael Main. The floor is yours.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So just a quick topic here. I'll try to keep it short. I've had lots of very informal conversations with different board members, past and present, in regards to increased law enforcement opportunities in the township, and So one of the things that, I've always talked about was the Department of Justice COPS grant that allows, hiring of law enforcement, and they pay a percentage of that, those wages for a 3-year period, and the 4th year is typically on the agency. COPS grant just came out, so it kind of come back into my radar, and I've had a conversation with Township Supervisor Milky and Mr. Stildreyer and a few others, and thought maybe we could just have an informal conversation, or a formal conversation, I guess, at this point. Just real quick on the background of the grant. Over the years, of the last 25 years, they put out about $14 billion in this COPS hiring program. An estimated about $140 million in awards this year alone. So kind of how it works is the law enforcement agency would write the grant. They would be responsible for the grant and the hiring, and it's an entry-level position. We would end up doing a side contract with Union Township to offset those costs, and that deputy or deputies would be assigned to Union Township patrols. Obviously, we work on shifts where it would be the most heavy case call load that we've seen over the statistical data and so forth. There's a high preference on community policing and reduction in crime and fear and traffic reduction of crashes and that kind of stuff. And of course, it's a federal grant, and I know Mark's been involved in them, and they're 40, 50 pages long, and there's a lot to them. There's a lot of things you got to kind of jump through the hoops to get those grants, but they're not unreasonable to get to as well. Some of the things that I think out of the top of my head, obviously traffic's a big one, but maybe having those extra staff be able to do programs in the box stores for retail frauds that we have a lot of. The increased presence. I know I just had a subdivision reach out about a neighborhood watch program that they're interested in, and so all those things can kind of come along with some extra staff that can be dedicated to the township. The numbers, and this is just rough numbers. We'd have to really take a deep dive into them. I actually talked to some folks at the COPS grant yesterday, because it's not very clear on how they do the formulas, but it kind of looks like, and the way it works is they get to a 75%, but there's a cap of 125,000. And by the time it all works out, my figures, and again, I'm not a mathematician, so I certainly want some better eyes on that, but it looks like it's about a $47,000-ish a year for the 4 years to put one deputy on. There are some limitations. It doesn't cover overtime, doesn't cover training, doesn't cover a vehicle, doesn't cover fuels and things like that. So, those there may be some share cost possibilities there, but we'd have to talk about that a little bit. The biggest disadvantage at this point is the deadline is they're only open for about 20 to 25 days. So unless you've got a full-time staff or you've got your ducks in a row, it's almost impossible. And this is one of the things that Mr. Milky and myself talked about. Maybe this year is not a feasible thought because of the fact that it's a lot of work to get there. I have recommended in the past maybe a work group between the township and the sheriff's office to go through and figure all the little bells and whistles and dotted I's and crossed T's and stuff. These grants really don't change much from year to year. The verbiage is pretty much the same. The applications are pretty much the same. So I'm confident that we could put it together over the next several months, as a work group. And then when it comes out in the 2022 year, if the township, of course, is interested in moving forward, we would have all of those things kind of put together and able to do that. But it's certainly something, the township would have to come up with and agree upon and, make happen. But I'm more than willing to be part of any group that they want to talk about that. And maybe we talk about it and it doesn't go anywhere. That's fine too. But, we're always looking for more help. You can turn the TV on any day and see that every place is busier, and we're feeling that. We're up to 6,000 incidents already, and just the sheriff's office, and and we're full staff, thank God. And I know I've been in front of you a few times where we were half staffed, and the increase in stuff that the county was able to give our folks helped us out tremendously. So, but we're turning the wheels, but we're busy. It's busy everywhere, and that's not just Isabella County. That's across the country. Period. So that's my spiel in a nutshell in 5 minutes. I try to keep it short, and I certainly have try to answer questions, and yeah, that's where we're at.
Great, thank you. I just to let you know, had worked with Sheriff Leo, and I could never say his last name, forgive
Nobody
me.
could.
No one could. And back in 2013, the township actually looked at this as an option, what you're describing, and we didn't get the grant, but I did find the old paperwork that we had, and I shared that with our board this past week. So, are there questions here for Sheriff Maine, Trustee Bills?
Sheriff, have you ever had this grant awarded to you, and were you able to do all the paperwork and the hoops and everything?
Not this one. I've done some federal grants. I think when I spoke with Mr. Trudeau, he'd been involved in some of them, and so he understands it pretty clearly as well. You know, they're not impossible. They're just there's certain deadlines you meet. There's certain things you got to do. You know, performance stuff, and that's with almost every grant. So, you know, I've done USDA grants, and you know, tens of thousands up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. So they're all kind of the same, but you just got to put it on your calendar that it's due this date and get it done type thing. But I think it's a lot of agencies across the country, a lot of agencies in the state of Michigan that use this, and it's a good way to fund some positions and help with that load. And you know, increased visibility alone is priceless. You know, if you got a car rolling through a parking lot or at night, or an apartment complex or a box store, or you know, just down the road, down the street, it's priceless sometimes to defer crime. Unfortunately, you can't put a statistical data point to that because you have no idea that you just stopped a car larceny or, you know, some other type of crime. So, or a traffic stop, or a traffic accident because somebody slowed down or stopped at the yellow light versus running.
Thank you.
Trustee Hout?
Yes, I just know that back when I was out walking the streets campaigning, and I'm sure maybe some of the other people that were out walking the streets heard the same thing. The two biggest things I heard were roads and safety. I was telling Sheriff Maine the other day when I saw him, I was walking down Belmont Street and I was with Brian Smith. We were walking down Belmont Street and we were talking to a couple of people, and a sheriff's deputy car came down the street. And the guy looked at us and he said, "I've lived here for 7 years. It's the first time I've seen a cop car down my road." So I thought, you know, I just think we have a need.
Looking for any other hands? Thank you, Bill. Not seeing anything. I guess, Sheriff, I'd like to say thank you for coming. I think our board needs to have some dialogue because this idea was rebroached to this board a week ago, I think it was, and we need to have that conversation and include you in some of that conversation. See where this goes.
Yep. And I think I heard you kind of faded out there a little bit, and I agree. And it just, the thing that I just want to kind of reiterate is, you know, if we don't do anything, and then this time next year rolls around, we'll you know, same conversation, we won't be ready. But
Right.
and again, maybe if we take a deep dive into it, maybe it doesn't work the township, maybe it doesn't work the sheriff's office. But I just think you know, having a small group to kind of put it together and really deep dive it is a smart move for all of us. But I'm encouraged by the conversation, and if you guys want to do something, I am ready to do it as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for your service to your county here too.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, that was two great presentations. We have no public hearings tonight.
I'll be right back. I gotta shut my blind really quick. It's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the sun too. I said before the meeting, I said this time when we started this board, it was dark out when we started our meetings, right? Anyway, that brings us to item 7 on our agenda, public comment. Public comments restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. It's not an opportunity for questions, but rather just comments only. If you'd like to address the public and or board, if you're new to Zoom, if you move your mouse, there's a participants button. Actually, it's called contacts for some versions. Is that what I heard last time?
Reactions.
reactions. In any event, on the bottom of your screen, reactions, I believe you can raise your hand, or if you have the participants panel up, you can click on the raise hand button. That'll get the attention of staff and or board to give you the floor. And with that, also leave your comments to 3 minutes or less and state your name and address for the record. We'll open public comment at 7:31. And I believe the only public at this point is a reporter. And seeing no one coming forward, we will close public comment at 7:32 p.m. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, reports and board comments. Again, I'm going to lift up on the boards and commissions. We still have an EDA slot open, 1 or 2 ZBA slots. That's what my memory is giving me. Anybody else have more to add to that? We have filled our sidewalks and pathways committee, which is nice to hear.
Yes, that was very nice.
Yes, Clerk Cody.
Planning Commission, I am stepping down as the liaison, so if we can fill that spot.
I don't know if we're ready to do that tonight, but I am thankful for your time there. And I know you enjoyed it every bit as much as I did, and it's not because of not enjoying the board.
No, it's just there's too many elections coming up, and I can't.
Yeah, and planning commission's a heavy lift. I will mention James Therian served on planning commission prior to this, so he has a little bit of experience. We may have to do some jockeying of some things. I want to make sure we as a board had an opportunity to have those discussions before we made an appointment. And I did check the next planning commission meeting was June 18th, I believe, which is after our next meeting. So let's put this on our agenda for the next meeting to get that position filled. And so if any, yes, Trustee Haug?
Yes, Lisa, are you willing to serve on another commission? Like if you go off the planning commission, are you willing to take one of the other spots? Like for the city, the county, the road commission, any of those?
I mean, it kind of depends on the length of the meeting. It's just really hard because
Well, planning
the
commission
increase
ones are
of-
long, yeah.
And Lisa does serve on the intergovernmental.
Yeah.
So think about that, Clerk.
well, it's something I could, if I couldn't make one, I could have somebody fill in. It's just on the planning commission, you can't do that. So if I miss
Right.
one, it's, I don't like to miss them.
All right. Well, thank you for your service and perfectly understandable. Any other comments on the boards and appointments? With that, yes, Trustee Bills.
I'm the liaison to the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. There's really nothing going on this year. If I could at least fill in, I'm not trained in it or anything, but I don't know what to do about that. I could sit in, I mean, that's up to you. Whatever.
All right, we'll have conversations.
Yep.
The May monthly activity report. Any questions for our manager regarding that?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Oh, yeah. Trustee Haug?
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, just a second, okay. Page 9, it just says, bill the insurance company for legal fees. What case is that for, Mark?
Where are you at again, Trustee Haug?
What's that, page 9, the last item, it says, in accounts payable miscellaneous, it says, bill the insurance company for legal services. Is that for a case or is that just for general legal services or?
That was for, I get them mixed up. The concerned citizens case we had coverage of 25,000. So when we get invoices and we pay them, then we turn around and bill the insurance company for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you. Page 15, this is like Kim Smith, I see where Home Depot, you had to dereg the pump again. That seems like that happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does happen a lot. We've sent them letters, gone in and talked to them. It's better, but we're still experiencing issues there. John's currently looking for a different kind of pump to put down on that station.
Yeah, because I know you've mentioned that before, that it just
Yeah.
seems like it's a continuous problem. And then the only other one I have is on page 16. It says, order electronic devices. I take it those are laptops for the Board of Trustees. Have those been ordered?
I've been told they've been ordered, and that was last week.
All right, thank you. I just am sick of using my personal device. So, thank you.
Now isn't always the best time to buy stuff with chips in it.
Yeah.
Timing might not be the best, but in any event, any other questions for our manager regarding the multi-activity report? Being none, planning commission, ZBA updates by our community and economic development director, excuse me, Rodney Nanny. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. To start with, I'll start with the Zoning Board of Appeals. They did not have any agenda items for their May meeting, so that was canceled. And actually the same for their June meeting, which was also canceled. We have had some conversations with the chair of the ZBA about setting up a training session for later in the year, with the idea that when our vacancies are filled, that we can have a training session, even if we don't have any other agenda items. But at this point, no meeting in May or June. The Planning Commission, on the other hand, had a very busy May meeting. They had 4 site plans on the agenda, including a couple of two that were essentially expansions of existing previously developed sites, kind of a new phase. One case, new phase of a mini storage. The other one, new phase of a commercial office area on Broomfield. One of the other interesting ones was the Den on Broomfield. This is a pair of mixed-use buildings, commercial on the commercial office on the first floor, with 2 floors of apartments above. This is on the south side, or will be on the south side of Broomfield Road at Sweeney Road, and the Plan Commission approved the final site plan for that. The other project that they took action on is the one that Mr. McBride alluded to, and that's it was a final site plan for, actually a combined preliminary final site plan for a project at 2266 Northway Drive. This is an industrial building behind Home Depot. You approved a rezoning to put that into the industrial district. The other part of that project was a site plan for some improvements to the building, especially to the site, including additional parking, and lighting, and some other access improvements. The Plan Commission approved that site plan. In both cases, we have a few details they need to take care of, so we're awaiting updated plans with those corrections or details being addressed. Those will be reviewed administratively. The Plan Commission also has a busy meeting coming up already scheduled in June. We have, among our items, we have the county jail is returning to the agenda for a new site. That'll be a special use permit public hearing at their June meeting. In addition to that, we have several other site plan projects that are coming before them. So it's definitely a busy time for them. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just to comment on the ZBA, I continue to like the fact that our ZBA is not having to work too hard. That's a beautiful place to be. Do you have a feeling for when it will become public, the construction that's happening there behind Home Depot?
Well,
I'm not asking who, obviously. Just do we have a timing? You have a feeling for that?
I mean, what I can say is that it's a distribution center facility. I don't have timing on anything else.
Okay.
It is a very good business addition, nice economic development project. There'll be, according to the site plan, about 40 employees that will be new employees in the area. So it's certainly a very positive project for the site and for the community.
Awesome. And then a quick last question, I think. With regards to just construction costs, everything construction-wise, it seems like is either one, hard to attain, or two, very expensive. Do you have a feeling for what kind of hindrance that's having on development in our community, or no?
It certainly is a challenge. I think it is particularly having an effect on residential construction, especially single family homes. As you know, we're seeing single family home prices going up significantly. That's a supply and demand issue. There's simply not enough supply, and so with the demand going up, prices go up. The challenge with single family homes in particular is that the price of materials has been rising so quickly, for a time anyway, that by the time a developer would complete a quote and the prospective buyers agree to that quote, the quote is out of date and can be out of date. I heard numbers a month or so ago, as much as $30,000 in essentially adjustments have to be made on the price of a home just to deal with material costs. That came up during the process of planning and construction. It doesn't seem to be causing a great deal of difficulty on the commercial side. We're very busy, so on the commercial side, but I have no doubt it's affecting decisions that are made. At the Denon Broomfield project in particular, the final architectural design was very different from the concept plans that originally came to the township back in 2019 before the pandemic. And one of the reasons for that that was cited was material cost. And so they made some adjustments to the type of exterior materials they were using. So it does have an effect.
That's an exciting project too. We've talked about mixed use in the township for years, and it'll be a nice new project.
Biggest
Any
job
other
I
questions
did.
for our Community and Economic Development Director? Thank you very much.
Welcome.
With that takes us to item 8D, board member reports. And I'll start at the top right next to me, at least on my screen. Trustee Bills.
I have nothing to report today.
Thank you. Treasurer Rice.
So yesterday we had our meeting for Sidewalk and Pathways. And there is going to be a list of priorities being sent to you guys. And that, oh, I accidentally closed out of it here. But there are 4 things that we voted on as top priorities. And that, if you can give me a second, sorry, I accidentally closed out of it. I've got the actual list for you. And so with this, the 4 will be sent to you guys, and it is, or sent to us, I should say. The list of potential priority areas, there's the north side of West Pickard Road from west of Ashland Drive to South Lincoln Road. So that is one. Township Hall and McDonald Park and South Lincoln Road area. You know, the South Lincoln Road sidewalk project from Lux Funeral Home north to the Township Hall parking lot. And that, looking in there. And then there is on South Isabella Road area, extending sidewalks along both sides of South Isabella Road, south from East Pickard Road, and south to East Broadway Road. And then the fourth one is Concourse Drive, Crawford Road area. Looking at extending a sidewalk or paved pathway eastward from Concourse Drive at the back of the Southgate subdivision east of Crawford Road across the utility access easement. And that's back here. Those are just ones that we discussed as higher priority on the list, and more information will probably come. And then there was also the topic was brought up to bring in front of the board about purchasing policies and like local contractors, looking at something. And I don't remember if they said the city or the county has a 5% offset when considering a bid. And they were asking that we look into something like that. It was just a topic that came up, and so I am bringing that to you guys as well. Other than that was the basic of it. Our next meeting we have for October 26th at 6:30 p.m. and we will be looking at future projects, more in the future than the immediate. So
Very much. Any questions? Trustee Hauk?
Yeah, I attended a road commission meeting on the 13th of May. Then there's another one tomorrow afternoon I'll attend. But if anybody saw, we got our roads, our gravel roads were graded and brined last week. That was our first application. We have 2 more. They approved 16 gravel road refurbishings. That's where they do that 50-50 split. We had approved in our budget $18,500 for that. What are we gonna do with that? I know we're not gonna do any gravel roads. I know that Mark and Kim had told us, maybe a month or 2 ago, that we're not gonna do any gravel roads. So I just wondered what that money is gonna get appropriated to. They said that Isabella and Remus roads, this was 2 weeks ago now, that it was at 56% completion, and there are still 4 easements left for Lincoln and Broomfield roads. They've moved into their new building. I'm sure many of you guys have been by their old building. It's completely demolished now, and they're waiting for furniture for their new building. But the question I have is, what are we doing with the budgeted amount that we had for gravel roads that we're not going to use?
There are 2 thoughts on that. We have 2% applications in that are partner applications. One is Meridian Road, and we would have a contribution on that, so that's an option. And then the other is partnering with the road commission on chip and seal.
On what?
On a chip and seal.
Oh, okay. They mentioned that they're
program, and so and I think it's tomorrow that we should find out a little bit. So we should find out the results of our 2% application. So we'll be able to start thinking about a recommendation at that point.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Do you know, Bill, on the Remus Isabella corner there, the work that they've been doing, there's a egress apron there, or I'm not sure the correct terminology, but on the south side of Remus along Isabella, there's curbs that go in.
There's what?
There's curbs that go in. It's kind of a, it's an ingress.
They're making a right-hand turn lane there.
Yeah, but there's actually, the curb breaks and there's pavement going into the property as if there's
Oh,
gonna
I
be.
don't know. I guess I didn't notice that. I haven't been
Yeah.
by there in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of, and I'm not on planning commission, but I wasn't aware of any construction there. That's why I was wondering what that might be for.
Well, maybe it's
Where's that?
access for the farm field. It might be what's that?
It could be, I guess. It seems like they would use Remus to get in and out of, but that's possible.
Yeah, maybe there wasn't a driveway along Remus and the original one may have been along Isabella Road.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I was just curious. Thanks.
yeah.
Trustee Brown?
No report at this time.
Trustee Thering?
Nothing to report.
Am I breaking up on you all?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was just checking. I'm connected to the right Wi-Fi, so I don't know what to do. Clerk Cody?
As you know, there's going to be an election August 3rd for the county for the 911 surcharge. We need to do that. And then, so we have to have a meeting of the election commission tomorrow, so we can ask to consolidate some of the precincts, save some of the cost on that. So we're going to do that, to request it from the county to consolidate it, save money. So there's an election commission meeting tomorrow at 6.
Very good. You weren't expecting that.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay.
I don't have a lot to report. As our manager mentioned, we did get communication from the tribe that we were awarded at least some 2% distribution, and what that is, we have no idea, but we'll find that out tomorrow, and that'll be communicated out. So excited about that and grateful for that, whatever it happens to be for. I think we applied for 3 different items, so it is. And then the EDA met again with our consultant that's helping us build the plan for the future. And so we basically have gone from the SWOT brainstorming steps. Can you hear me? Okay.
Nah.
From the brainstorming SWOT steps to beginning to look at how we're going to formulate a plan moving forward. And that's where we're kind of at. So it's kind of a fun stage to be in. And that's all I have to report. And with that, that moves us to item 9, consent agenda. Happy to entertain any motions.
Motion
Make a
to
motion
approve.
that we, oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Let's see. Motion by Cody. I heard. I
Bills.
think I heard Trustee Bill's support first. Treasurer Rice.
We should probably take out the check for Mr. Thering. So approve the consent agenda with the exception of that check for James Thering.
The reimbursement.
The reimbursement, it was the wrong amount, so.
Yeah, Lisa, there was a mistake made, so it has to be reissued.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with taking out the for Thering.
Support.
Okay, we got support on the amendment. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the agenda with the exception of the 1 check to Trustee Thering? Seeing none. Clerk Cody, would you get a roll call on the motion I just stated, please?
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Hauck,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice.
Yes.
All yes.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to first new business item 10A. Forgive me as I shuffle through my paperwork here.
Don't we have to actually go through the things in the accounts payable? or
No, not,
No.
we approved those. I mean, if there was
just
an issue.
approved it? Okay, sorry.
So the first item of new business, here, I thought I was organized, my papers got all a mess, is discussion on 2.3 compensation and benefits. I'll ask our manager to introduce anything if he would like on this.
Thank you. The policy 2.3 compensation and benefits has to do with employment compensation benefits to employees, consultants, contract workers. And it says that the township manager shall not cause or allow jeopardy to fiscal integrity or public image. There's some sub policies in that, for instance, manager's not able to change his or her own compensation or benefits, except with the approval of the board. Manager, the administration shall not promise or imply permanent or guaranteed employment to anybody. The manager will ensure that compensation and benefits are in line with the local market, or not deviate materially from those, keeping in mind some resource constraints. And so there's a couple other sub policies. I won't go through each one of those there. So I interpret that policy. I think the policy itself is pretty well written. It's specific. So I interpret that policy to be basically as I read it, or as a common person would read that. The justification for that interpretation is that the policy is clearly written. There's some data in the report for your consideration. Manager's compensation package is a result of board approval. No changes have been made to that since 1/1/20. At that time, there was an approval by the board for a $250 a month car allowance, and an additional weeks of vacation was added to the package. There was no change at that time made to the base salary. The last change to that salary was in 1/1/2019. The collective bargaining units compensation is a result of, or I'm sorry, the bargaining units compensation is a result of collective bargaining agreements that were negotiated between the bargaining units and the employer of the township. Those were approved by the Board of Trustees. Those are in effect through December 31st of 2022. The collective bargaining agreement also calls for cost sharing and of the healthcare premium benefit expense. Over the last 3 years, that cost sharing has continued to move away from the employer to the employee. Currently, it's at 91% employer, 9% employee, and that will increase to 90%, 10% employee in 2022. There was in January of 2021 a memorandum of understanding that was executed with the bargaining groups to address sick time and COVID. There were requirements where, not just requirements, but a desire on our part to facilitate COVID quarantining and isolation requirements. So we negotiated an additional COVID bank that would be available to our employees, and that expires at the end of June. All positions that came before all positions that came open in 2020 were filled through a competitive process, posting, review of applications, interviews and ultimately selection. So with all that in mind, I consider that the administration is in compliance with that, with this policy.
One quick question. So when I first read this is the last bullet point, regarding the additional sick time paid for COVID. It says June 30th, 21. And when I first read that, I thought, I hope COVID doesn't last that long.
That would be a typo.
I figured as much. But all right. Before we kind of go through this, anybody have questions or comments for our manager on that? Seeing none, I'll ask you the questions, and I guess I'll just ask if there are objections to any of these, meaning the answer would be no. Was this report submitted when due?
Yes.
Did the
Yes.
report lay out the manager's interpretation or operational definition of the policy? Although he didn't read it, it is listed there in text,
Yes.
right? Is the interpretation justified?
Yes.
Mhm.
Are you convinced the interpretation is justified and reasonable?
Yes.
And I think our manager said it, this part of the policy governance is fairly clear. Do you feel that the manager's interpretation addressed all the aspects of this portion of the policy?
I think so.
Yes.
All right. And then our manager provided some data. Do you feel like the manager is providing data to show compliance?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 And I'm going to ask that question a little bit differently. I mean, the data there shows that we're in compliance, but do you feel like we are in compliance?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
Is there any area of this policy that you feel like is not being addressed that we should be addressing, or any language changes that we should incorporate?
I don't think so.
Yeah, this is a fairly cut and dry one, but I'm glad it's in our policy, and I guess I thank our manager for sticking to this one. Any last comments on this?
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
All right, with that, that moves us to item 10B, review of governor's policy 3.10, cost of governance. And let's see. Assuming you've all read through this, there's a few things in here. They talk about skills, training, et cetera, et cetera. Also has the meeting pay information in it, developing the budget. I guess, I mean, do you have any comments before I ask some of the questions we need to go through? Okay, seeing none. Believe item by item, the board is in strict compliance with all of this?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian. I meant to grab you before you started asking the questions.
Sure.
On page 42, I highlighted outreach mechanisms will be used as needed to ensure the board's ability to listen to owner viewpoints and values. I'm not sure of an example of that.
Meaning what is that?
Yes.
An outreach mechanism might be like coffee hour, proper advertising of meetings, maybe social media, website, emails, letters that go out to community. That's how I interpret it. I don't know if our other.
Well, no, I mean, that's what I thought that. I'm sorry. I just didn't. I guess really we haven't been able to do anything like that. So I think my question's answered, and that's something we'll discuss in the next part of the meeting. So
Yeah, I
I'm
would
good.
agree
I'm
that
good.
that's not something that, I would have highlighted that as something that we've not succeeded in since this new board's come together, but
Right.
a lot of that has to do with the situation we've been in for the last 15 months.
Right.
And I think I was gonna lift up, 2 paragraphs above, the 3.10.11, training and retraining. I know you went to some training recently, and as new board members came on, some went to some training. But as we begin to open up, we really need to refocus on this. We've budgeted money, and part of the cost of governance is making sure that we're all tooled with the skills that we need to do good governance. And so I'm encouraging each of you, to begin to look at that calendar and how we can begin to train ourselves better to be more effective board of trustees. So I think we haven't been in compliance in either of those, but I guess we have a bit of an excuse. But it's time to begin changing that, is my thoughts. Yes, Trustee Bills.
Well, I would just like to echo what Trustee Thering just said about the outreach. I mean, I've been living in the township for 5 years and I don't remember any outreach of any kind at all. And I don't know if this has been in the policy all that time, but I don't. So with the methods I use, so.
Right. So what I'm hearing, at least from 3 of us so far, not strict compliance of all of this, and that we could do better, right? Do I hear pushback from that? Because that's a challenge.
Well, could always be better.
Always do better. Any other comments on items as far as compliance with the text that's here? Trustee Hauk, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I was just moving my laptop.
Okay. So I guess this is a reasonable time for us to ask, though. Trustee Thering, you said we can wait till the next section, but I think it's worth stating. How do you think we can improve? And Trustee Bills, you both lift up the same thing. So what things can we do to improve that? Trustee Bills?
Well, I think we should have a social media officer, and we should have a Facebook page, and also maybe another kind of social media as well. But I think, we really, we could use, like the radio station to publicize our meetings or whatever, I mean, I don't know, but I think that the general public doesn't have any idea, doesn't have a clue what we're doing. So I just think, utilizing some of the airways to give them idea what we're doing, that would be better.
Trustee Hauk?
Yeah, Connie, we used to have a township newsletter that went out. I don't know if you ever remember getting that, but that hasn't gone out in probably the last 4 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that used to come quarterly, I think, something like that.
I think it's been a lot longer than that.
Oh, has it?
I think so. I don't remember ever getting one. And
Oh, they used to come.
that,
They were
and
nice. I mean,
yeah, and my husband bought this in 2009. So
Wow.
Oh, I think it's been since that. I think anyway. They used to be like a 4-page fold out, and
Mm-hmm.
it had information, about the parks and cleanup day, social activities. It was a nice newsletter. And I know Mark has talked before about possibly bringing that back, but I think we had talked one time in the previous board about maybe hiring an internship or getting an intern to do that.
Oh, yeah. The college for entrepreneurship, they had those guys, because I had those guys come to my office and do social media stuff with me. So
Yeah.
Trustee Theron, did you have something?
I did. Actually, I had a brief conversation with Mark, and I kind of started to mention something, and he actually took the conversation. He understood I was talking about, like a hybrid, where like when we get back together in person, that people could still maybe watch our meetings via Zoom. And when it comes for public comment, have the ability to participate. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be there to express a thought that we could hear, which it does many things. It opens the door for people to attend meetings that maybe don't have the ability to jump right in the car and come on down, that want to be involved, or just to participate with a thought without having to get in front of everybody. It was a brief conversation, but he had actually, as I started to talk about it, he kind of took over. So he knew exactly what I was thinking, which was great. It mentioned that they were thinking about that as COVID was coming into play, but obviously we got neck deep in it, went from wading to over our head in the water. So, we made the best with what we had, which was good. So that's a thought.
I had that same conversation tonight, James, with my my wife, saying, when we're able to meet in person again, it'd be nice to be able to allow those that do that remote connection still, because it has opened our meetings to some that it wouldn't have with the traditional way that we've met.
I like it, and I think I just kind of assumed that we would always have Zoom from now on.
Well, I mean, as a board, I'd like to see the board be together whenever
Yeah.
possible. But I mean, I'm talking more for the community.
Right.
I'm sure that, like I said, there's a lot of members of our community that just maybe flat out have a lot of really good things to say and add, but just don't have the ability to get to the meeting.
Right. Tell you what, I'm going to end our conversation here, as much as I like it, because I know we want to make sure we have time for the last item on our agenda, but it'd be nice to continue this conversation and look at ways that we can make outreach to our ownership stronger between the board and the ownership. So I guess let's continue to brainstorm that. So I appreciate you lifting that up. And again, last plug for training. We've made a pledge to do that. So let's continue to try to do that. Is that okay if we move on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, that brings us to what I hope is the highlight of the evening. At least I'm excited. And this is going to be discussion of our ends. As you know, we met in Jameson Hall, and at that point we were just kind of dipping our toes in the water. And I think we have a little bit of a format that we can follow that can begin to allow us to voice some of our ideas. Obviously, I don't think anyone plans to leave here tonight with the finished product, but we'll have a chance to hear each other and take that home with us, collate some of that data and reflect on what that means as a body versus individuals. Is that a reasonable interpretation for what you're expecting? Manager Stuhljar, do you have anything to say on this? Would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a follow-up to our meeting we had on May 5th. The last meeting we spent mostly just with trying to get a foundation in the terminology, some of the definitions that are used in policy governance. I won't go over all that again. I will remind the board as it relates to the ends that they're generally mid to long-term perspectives. Taken together, they roll up to define the purpose of the organization, and that they describe, what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, what we want the future to look like. They are outward looking. The focus is on external impacts, not internal operations. You'll recall that they include 3 components. They try to describe the effect or the desired outcome to be produced. They speak to the intended recipient or beneficiary, usually direct. And they also try to describe some sort of priority, because there are more than one of those. So tonight we're going to begin the I think the communication to each other and the documentation of your, as individuals, you all have individual ends that I think you want to begin to get out on the table and share with each other. I gave you a tool to help you do that last week. If you haven't completed it, you don't need to, but what I will want to try to get back from you individually after tonight is something that I can use, because there's 7 of you, and y'all have several ends, and y'all have each of your individual priorities for that. So you're going to have an opportunity to articulate those, and then give that information to me if you can, and I can begin to compile it. Several of them may be very similar, and they overlap. So I'll try to do some work with all that information that I hope to obtain, and then compile that and return that back to you. And then we'll have another meeting that, as a board, tries to prioritize. So we're moving from individual prioritization to board prioritization. And that I'm sure will take another meeting. So I'm just going to go around, and I'll, not to be picking on anybody, but I'm going to ask that Trustee Bills try to articulate some of the ends that you've been thinking about. Who do you want to impact?
Okay.
Desired effect, and what is your priority?
Okay. I just had 3 things I had down for right now. The first thing is the outcome would be achieve 50% reduction in carbon footprint by 2030. The direct beneficiary, consumer, residents, and environment. And I put it down as a priority 2. To the notes, improve quality of life through decreased pollution, reduced utility costs in the long term. And the second thing I put was green space availability within walking distance for all residents. And again, I just put down consumers and residents as the beneficiary. And I think that's a priority 1. And then my notes were just, that goes to community well-being, common good, and natural resources. The third thing is, and I know I harp on this all the time, but paved access for walking/biking on all major roadways. The beneficiaries are going to be consumers, the residents, and the local economy. Priority 1. There's a few reasons. So my notes were increased walkability attracts more highly qualified workers to the community, attracts businesses, and residents can access business via non-traditional means. And then just that some subdivisions have no walkability. So that also affects quality of life and health. That's all I had so far.
Thank you for that. And opening it up to the other board members, does anybody have any questions or for Trustee Bills? Do you understand what she's communicating there? I mean, it's not meant to be a debate amongst yourselves at this point. We'll get that ironed out be a priority, but just any need for clarification. All right, well, thank you very much. And we are recording this, so that is another method that I'll be able to capture this information.
I'll email it to you.
Thank you. Treasurer Rice, how about you?
So I also have on mine, walkable community as my first priority. Trying to, it's intended for residents and also the community. I mean, we want to be able to make sure that anybody can walk through and see our township and be safe on the roads and that kind of thing. So I did have that down. I also was looking at you know, some environmental, you know, we're doing that with the electronic board, which I think is great. And that there's also been talk of solar, and you know, that's not just environmental, but financial stability. And then I also have down communication, but I mean, that's more broad terms kind of thing. I had these ends written down before your fillable form, and so I didn't put that directly, but with communication, I mean, that's for residents, for them to be well informed and that kind of thing. I don't know, do you have any questions on those? I guess those were some of my main ones right there.
For the benefit of the administration, would you, and it doesn't have, you don't have to use the form, but if even just an email that of those 3 or 4 items, if you could.
Oh yeah, I've got them
Right.
typed. I've got them typed up. I can send them to you.
Okay. And does that describe the desired outcome and the community that you're trying to impact and your own priority?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Anybody like any clarification or anything from Treasurer Rice?
Yeah. Could you elaborate on the communication? That's a broad term. Not sure what you mean by that.
So, you know, one of the things we've heard a lot over the past, you know, several years is communication being, residents don't always know things that are going on, or also communication, you know, trying to find out things and they're not getting phone calls returned, things like that. So just trying to make sure that we're reaching our residents and getting back to them in a timely fashion. And you know, I've kind of made it a goal to make sure that I've been doing that as well, you know, and just making sure that as a township, we are communicating to our residents and that in a timely fashion, things like that. Did that
Yeah.
help? Okay. So I mean, yeah, it is a multi.
Yeah. That's big. That's big. And I think that represents a lot of our goal. A lot of us have that goal. I would like that.
Okay, good. Trustee Hauk.
Yes, I've got 3 or 5 actually. I talked to you about this, Mark, last week one day. I'd like to see us have some kind of a business forum where we could bring in developers, maybe some business owners, real estate reps, lenders, have them come in and discuss how they think that we could develop our community better, our business community better, how we can draw more business. Another one is safety issues, and everybody knows how I feel about that. I mean, that's why one of the reasons that Sheriff Maine was here tonight. Parks, I've always been big on parks. I was on the Isabella County Parks Board for 12 years. I'd like to see us develop some new destinations, not just the one I talked about at Deerfield and Mission, but you know, possibly out at Jameson Park. There's a lot of land right next to that. A nice trail in the woods would be you know, something people could walk through. And we have our cleanup day. I'd like to see us, you know, there's such a demand for that. I wonder if we should have 2 a year. And then the other one I had was blight issues. I'll talk to Rodney about one here. I had a call the other day about a place that there's many cars at, barn falling over and stuff. So that's all I have.
Trustee
I'll
Howe?
get those typed up and sent to you.
Yeah. Trustee Howe, you mentioned new destinations, like we were talking about the parks, and I think you used as an example the idea of the trailhead that you talked about, right?
Right.
Can you just go a little more into what you mean by new destinations?
Well, just like that would be a new park where it would draw people to it. Like I
Additional
said, with
community event places. Places where people go, right?
Playground out there, pavilion.
Okay. I wanna make sure I
Over in
understood.
Jameson Park, you know, there's a land right next to it. Have a walking trail out through the woods, similar to what you have out at Deerfield Park.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything for Trustee Hauk before we move on? Trustee Brown.
Yeah, I have a couple priority ones and a priority two. My first priority one I feel very strongly about is and it's family connection in our community again. And it really comes to our teenage community that I think we have a lot of parks with all of our stuff for our underage kids, our playgrounds and stuff like that. But after raising a couple teenage kids and watching what they went through in the community, not only in the township, but also in the city, there's nothing really for them. That 12 to 17 age group, and I talked to my kids and a lot of their friends, and what do? They go cruise around. There's nothing to do. There's just nothing there. One thing I'd really like us just to kind of take a look at, or maybe just throw out some ideas for that age group, because that's an age group that we lose very quickly. They got that Y in the road, and it depends what Y they take at that age. I think for us as leaders in the community, we really need to take a look at that. That's for me, I think that's a detrimental age of where the kids are going to go and what they're going to turn into, their work ethics, everything like that. So that was one of my priority ones. Priority two, or another priority one, everybody's kind of touched on the walking ability of this community and biking ability. I think we need to link it all together. I think that's extremely important in the pathways, sidewalk and pathways. A couple of trustees on this board, so much they've done with that group, and I truly appreciate that. I'm a big supporter of that. And where we're getting to, everybody kind of knows who that's going to benefit. I believe there's been enough talk about that. And then a priority two, just circling back to the communication was on my list. The communication, because we've all heard it out there in the community. We've all heard different things, but I would like to take it to the next level. Maybe if where the community meets the board, or have a cookout or something like that, where the community can actually come out and talk to us face to face, bring a little bit more of that in, especially after this last year. Just looking at a little bit different ways that we can communicate outside the box. James had some great ideas. Trustee Bills had some great ideas, and Trustee Rice. But maybe think out the box a little bit more, where we offer to bring the community to us in some different ways. Just those are the points that I had. I could go on and ramble and talk about all different kinds of ideas, but I think those are the main ones. My priority, two of my priority ones and my priority two that I think were kind of really at the back of my mind. Appreciate it if anybody has any questions for me at this time.
I think that's a great thought, by the way. The bringing the residents to us and coming up with new ways. That's great.
Just brainstorming, that's all. Connie?
Yeah, Jeff, I just want to let you know that we were cruising back in 1984 too. That's all we did.
85, 85 here too.
Cruise
But there-
mission, baby.
There were some more things for us to do though. Remember we had the big screen, you know, we could still go to drive-ins back, I
Yes.
believe in high school. I mean, you could go to a movie for $3. I mean, there was a lot of different things, and we had different areas we could go to and hang out, Hutcher's Gravel Pit and all these different places where that all the public land now is fenced off. These kids are, every time they pull in somewhere, they're getting, oh, hey, you get off my property. They just don't have, that age, even when they're riding their bikes or sidewalk, I watched a young guy get chewed out for riding his skateboard down the sidewalk the other day. It's like, you know, all he was doing was just riding a skateboard. He wasn't stealing anything. He wasn't, you know, so the community, I think, has become a little bit more intense to that age group. I think we just need to take a look at that. So.
I agree with you 100%. People are yelling at people all the time now. I see that when I'm riding my bike. It's horrible.
Yeah, well, I tell you, thank God for the Meridian Parks, the Deerfield. Thank goodness Union Township does have the parks, because my daughter at the age of 17 is going out hammocking with her friends in these parks. And that's what they're doing. Deerfield Park, they're actually really into this hammocking now, and these certain things. They take their speaker out with them and all that. That's good stuff. And I think that's really what we need to concentrate on.
And I think I caught the beginning of it and the clarification that you just gave. So the activity could be both indoor or outdoor.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Frisbee golf and kind of things outside that.
Oh yeah, disc golf and
Disc golf,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just anything like that, just to keep them busy.
24-hour community center, you know, just
Yeah.
spitball.
Youth for Christ has a lot of that.
Yeah, they do a great job. Youth for Christ does a great job with that.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're done with Trustee Brown, then Mr. Thering.
Yes, I actually took a different approach to this. Not quite what the rest of you did. And I really focused on one thing, and that is the linkage. And maybe I didn't approach it the right way, but I looked at it as if I had to write something different for the ends, what would I put down? And so I'll just read that aloud to you. I think it covers a lot, but it's not as specific as what a lot of you have been saying. But put down, citizens have a developed linkage to the board that allows the citizens to express their views on the township policy, and township future. So that's really vague, but it does have, it benefits the citizens, it benefits the board in helping with the direction to management so that they know how to move forward, I guess, to make our community better. Not as specific as some of the other things. Well, I guess in my mind, that's all I could wrap my head around, was just getting that linkage there.
I love it.
And I'll type it up and send it to you, Mark.
In addition to the linkage, do you have other things there that you want to share with your colleagues?
Well, no,
Okay.
I mean, but I agree with, I mean, sitting back and listening to them, it was like I kind of missed the boat a little bit on a few things. I mean, I feel the linkage gets us into a lot of different avenues, more of what does the citizens want? If the citizens can tell us, hey, I want A, B, and C, well then, you know what? I think we as a board then come together and work with you and your staff, Mark, to achieve those goals. So in my mind, I'm thinking I really like to that's really that was my main focus. So like I said, I missed it a little bit, but I think I touched it off to the side and,
Yeah.
and
Okay, well, thank you. And that, I think we've heard a lot of that in one form or another tonight, you know. We can describe communication and linkage and outreach in a whole lot of different ways. And so you're not, I wouldn't say you missed the boat at all. Clerk
Thank
Cody.
Okay, I have walkable community, which is public safety, one pathways for notes. I don't know if, you need more specification. Police force, I got public safety. We need more police force in Union Township. In the last couple of years, township has increased drastically in, calls, numbers, dispatch, cars, etc. I got affordable, buildable community, meaning housing developments, make it easier for builders to come and develop, which is some things that we're working on for the planning commission, making things easier for people to come and get a permit, things like that. So, it's something we're kind of working on, but I don't know if we can do it, board of trustees level, or does that has to be something planning commission level? I'm not sure. Solar, wasn't sure where to put that. Solar power, lights, things like that, make it a little more economic. And then I didn't have it on mine, but I'd like to add it to mine about the parks and halls, chiming off other people's, because I think that's a priority that I didn't think of. That's what I have.
Awesome.
Any questions or comments for Clerk Cody? Yes, Trustee Brown.
Hey, Kurt Cody, as far as the townships and halls, you mean the usage of them? Is that what you meant by that? Or is the
Like Jameson, we have the hall, maybe another one like that on the other side of town that we could rent out, and that had,
you mean adding locations is what you meant by
yeah,
that?
add another one similar.
Okay, just wanted to understand.
All right, additions.
Supervisor Melky.
Yeah, I have to say, I kind of did my ends for our Jameson discussion, and I did it differently than I'm presenting tonight. And I guess I do want to highlight that one of the things I did different, and I know this is slightly off topic, but I moved some things off. I looked at our current ends, and I took some things off and it's not that they weren't important to me anymore, but our staff and our resources as a township is only so big, and we can only do so much, and some things become higher priority. And so the first approach I took to this for our Jameson meeting was adding some things and taking off some things. And I'm not going to highlight what I'm taking off. Like, we're really talking about what are our values. So I transferred what I did onto Mark's form. And mine are pretty high level encompassing. But the first one, highest priority for me, was what I term local investment. And what that means is investing our tax dollars locally by spending local, awarding contracts, buying local. Obviously, we know what that means. It's not a only spend local. It means prioritize spending. Another outcome from that local investment could be renewable energy, both for economic and for environmental reasons, which speaks to a couple things that brought up tonight. Encouraging local job development. I would really like to see our township look at ways in which we can help foster encouraging job development. EDA looks at it, and they have different tools that we can use as a board, but maybe there's some tools that we could use to help encourage jobs in our community. obviously roads, pathways, and parks are all important to me, and those are part of our existing ends, but I wanted to include that as part of our local investment. So does that make sense? Secondly, I termed it, and I'm not sure I like the terminology I have here, but I termed it enforcement/accountability. And one of the things this township board did this last term is focus on making sure that everybody plays in the sandbox nicely together. And, it is citizen responsibility and it is business responsibility to play nice in the sandbox. And so a lot of focus in our township has been to make sure that what rules we do have are followed. And that includes dealing with the blight issue, which was a top priority in our survey that we did with the residents. A fair and non-discriminatory code enforcement that is applied evenly. And that's part of our current ends. Consistent and good processes within the township to allow for easy enforcement and accountability. Open all communication channels. This is, I'm sorry, I just skipped something. A master plan enforcement, that we as a township continue to look at that master plan and use that as our driving force for part of what the future looks like. So that was my second item. Third one was quality service. And what this means to me is really, when you're in the private industry and you're in competition, one thing that distinguishes you from other businesses is service. And that means friendly face, guiding hand, whatever it is, we can continue to work at being better at service. And so I mean that both from the board and staff, right? And that speaks a little bit for the linkage too, I think, that Trustee Therian brought up. But, that's understanding our residents and businesses' needs in those. It's not just for residents. It's making sure we're servicing our businesses and making those processes easy, like Clerk Cody just mentioned. And so that was included in my thoughts when I listed that as a service. Again, code enforcement, safety, I'm sorry, I'm skipping my notes again. Opening all communication channels, process assistance, both for residents and businesses, so that those local people that we do connect with, make sure that they understand what their local government's doing and how to go through the processes that are before us. Because a lot of times, for example, the assessment district, we just did a McGurk. That's a confusing process. It's state mandated as far as much of what we have to do. But the more we can do to help our residents navigate that, the better, because we understand some of it, but that's because we're sitting here, right? And we have to. And I think, Connie, you listed the fact that our residents, they don't know what we do here. And so when they do need our help, we need to be able to give them the best hand that we can. And then related to this service focus is that board linkage and accessibility to the board. So those are terms I'm using to describe what I meant by quality service. And then last was quality of life. And this is spoken to in our current ends as well. And it speaks to safety and health. And this covers some of the other things you've mentioned and is in our ends now. Code enforcement's part of that, safety in our parks, roads, and township properties, non-discrimination and diversity, opportunities for active lifestyles. Let's include teens, right? And then natural environment and our pathways and sidewalks are examples of how quality of life can be improved. That's what I got.
Good. Other of the trustees have anything they'd like to talk to the supervisor about regarding his outlook?
I agree with you, Supervisor Milky, that accountability has to go with customer service. It has to, there has to be the top-notch customer service to make you the best. Jurisdictions are known for what they produce in that, so I think you're right on.
Yep.
Did we lose? We did lose.
Kim
Right.
We lost
Rice.
Kim.
I'm bringing her back in, so just a second, please.
Okay.
Just came into the waiting room.
You know,
Unmute.
I did have the advantage of going last in that as I got to hear each of you, I kept looking at my notes thinking there was a lot of overlap. So it made me more comfortable, I guess, with what I had to present because not that I heard all of this from all of you, but many pieces that I heard from you, I felt were incorporated into mine too, which I guess is a good thing.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I didn't hear too much that was like, that would make me think that there was somebody that was standing out there on their own, you know, all alone. I think that speaks to the ability to at least to move forward as a group. If we had 7 different places that were completely different from each other, you know, then we'd have a struggle ahead of us. And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like we do in this case. So I really appreciate the time that you guys have put in, the time and the thought that you put into this. It's going to take the administration a bit of time because there's a lot of information that was just communicated. And because you were focused and you were prepared, you know, you were communicating with specificity, and you know, you can communicate a lot in just 3 minutes if you're communicating well. We'll take all this and my idea is not to compile it for attribution necessarily to anybody, but trying to take those things that are pretty common and may require a little wordsmithing, and bring similar ideas together under one thought pattern, if you will, and go through that exercise internally here so that I can turn around back to you a manageable list using the format of our ends, trying to articulate the desired effect and who we're trying to impact, so that then the board can prioritize those things. And that's just with the ends that you talked about tonight. We do have something, we do have a discussion that I think needs to occur with our existing ends. A lot of this that we've talked about tonight, I think, can easily be incorporated into our existing ends. Others are new ends. And then we, at a minimum, want to review these existing ends to see if any either should go away. So I'd be, you know, I'm real interested in, and I assume Supervisor Melke, you'll email me whatever it is you have, and so you'll have a list of things you consider for the group to want to remove as well, that you'll email me.
Sure.
Okay. And then before we do wrap up, the recipients of these outcomes that you've been describing, they're all, with the exception of Trustee Brown, who identified a group of folks within the township, you know, very specific teenagers with an age group. That, you know, that's very helpful, and it's right on point with what we're trying to do. I know that the residents and the citizens are, you know, are the stakeholders But you might want to give some thought to trying to articulate with additional specificity who it is you're trying to. It's easy to say all residents or all citizens. Maybe this you are local government, but there are groups within our community that, as Trustee Brown said, the teenagers and articulating what he wants more opportunities for that group. Walkability, I think that could cover infants and strollers all the way to senior citizens. But there are others that might benefit from some more defined definitions. So that's what I wanted to get out of tonight. I don't know. I'll ask you all if you feel like we're making progress.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like communication's more open.
Yeah. Comment on sending you removal stuff. As I think about it, I may be hesitant to do that now. And the reason for it is maybe we need to let these ideas that we've shared tonight gel and figure out where we are and how that fits into our current ends. And from that, I think there's a natural occurrence of there's some things in there that are important, but they may have to fall off the list because we have higher priorities. I don't want to suggest what those should be outside of the group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Should we have the group go through the current ends and kind of write down what priority number those things are?
We might. There is very little in the existing ends that describes any sort of priority. And so when we start talking about priority, that becomes a big job because we're also not only talking about prioritizing what you just were talking about, but then also, a page and a half of other things. And again, this is, it's up to the board, but I'd almost prefer focusing on what you all are articulating right now, prioritizing that, trying to capture that well. And then, some of it's going to fit into these other ends. And then we can, when we prioritize what you're talking about, I think that'll create a lot of information for us. So that, what we want to do is effectuate what you guys are talking about now. Even more so than maybe what's already in the document, although I think there's a lot of overlap. And I don't know if I'm making any sense in all this or not.
Yeah, you are.
Just another comment. I've been through this a few times, and I know some of their trustees have too. And every time I've been involved in looking at the ends and visiting those, it's always been, you look at the actual text of the ends and decide, does anything need to change? And something I really liked about tonight's process is none of us were strapped to that in any way. It was, what are your priorities? And it was nice to hear those independent of what text we have for current ends.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I had a thought, but it escaped me. So
Sorry about that.
one of my thoughts was that when all this started, even when the meeting started, that I was going to try to be hopefully done by 9. I don't think a lot of good things happen after 9. Y'all just get too tired and it's hard to focus. So it's 5 till 9. So
I have to say that, that's what I was thinking about when I was doing this, was what was actually written on the ends paperwork and trying to formulate I mean, I know what I wrote down does mean something to what we're saying, but yeah, that was my approach of, I have a little, sorry, Brian, that for some reason that was my focus of, and again, it was only one item, but what would I take out and what would I add in as an end? So.
Well, I have definitely thought of that way. I mean, that's how I did it originally too.
I like with what you came up
Yeah.
with, James.
I think yours is really important.
Yes.
I've enjoyed this. It's just kind of going through the motions now. It's like, let's do it again tomorrow. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as Mark can get that, compiled, I think I'd love to
Mark,
do
I
that.
mean, what are you doing between midnight and 5 a.m.? Come on. I'll see you at 7.
And so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I'll turn it back to the supervisor in just a second. I think it's also important to remember that even with the existing ends, and many of the existing ends are similar to what we're talking about now, it's easy to forget that as a board, you're actually accomplishing quite a bit of your end every day. And you want to remember that, and you want to give yourself credit for that. And you can pick up on that activity if you're looking at the monthly reports and if you're looking at the annual ends outcome report. But don't sit there and think that you're not moving the township forward and achieving, the outcomes that you want to see. Thank you for your time. I'll turn it back to you, Supervisor Melky.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 11 on our agenda, extended public comment, which is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. Seeing no new attendees, I won't give instructions again, but if you do choose to raise your hand and come forward, please state your name and address for the record. We'll open up extended public comment at 8:58 p.m. I'm seeing no one from the public here, unless that's why Mr. Nanny is here. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close extended public comment at 8:58 p.m. And to item 12, our manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher, you have the floor.
I just have two. There's a group that's gotten together in the community to talk about electronic scooters, e-scooters. That'll be real different here in the community if it moves forward. Coming out of the university, there's an interest by the students in e-scooters, and while they do have the technical ability to shut down at the border of CMU, the students really want them to go from mode of transportation. And so people from the township and the city are sitting down together and to see if things like uniform ordinances make any sense, and are there certain areas of the community that don't make sense for them to be. We're in that conversation with one of the larger vendors, it's called Bird. And I don't know if any of you have ever been into any of these towns where they're all over the place, but there's obviously some upside. There's potentially a lot of downside too. If you've ever seen them strewn all over the sidewalks when you're trying to get around and step over them and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
there's a group working that issue, and I just want to let you be aware of that. Then the other thing, we did receive from the state this might have been initiated by your prior board, but the township bought a high-speed absentee voter tabulator a year or two ago to help with the November of 20 election. Big piece of equipment, $35,000. The plan was for the state to contribute half of that. To effectuate that, Clerk Cody put in a grant application. The funds were received, I think yesterday, yesterday or the day before. So I wanted to make the board know that we received that 50% contribution from that grant. And thank you, Clerk Cody, for making that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it back to Supervisor Melky.
Thank you very much. That takes us to final board comments, and I'll go in reverse order this time from earlier. So I'll start with Treasurer Rice.
The only thing I have is, sorry, I missed the end of your ends there. For some reason, my computer shut down. I still had 30% battery, so I don't know why it shut down. But sorry I missed that, but I'm here. So.
Clerk Cody?
Taking notes, sorry. I'm good, thanks.
I was gonna say Kim Smith, but I'm gonna skip you, Kim. Trustee Fearing?
Real quick, Mark, as we go, like once a month, we go through governance policy. And through this boot camp, I actually saw a sheet of recommended monthly governance policy monitoring. Do you have kind of it set up differently so that at the end of the year, we've gone through the complete policy and basically addressed everything in it a little bit at a time?
It's in our folder.
Yeah, it's at the end of governance policies and schedule.
Oh, is
It's
it
in your
really?
budget in the folder right at the end.
Okay, you know what? I read the policy, but I didn't catch that.
There's a couple appendices, I think A and B. One is a monitoring schedule and the other, I'm not sure, but that is the schedule that we use to monitor the various policies.
Okay, I had a copy of the same, it's the same thing, but it's just, it's set up a little differently. And so that's what I was wondering how that came about. So at the end of the year, then we have got at least we've touched everything. So great, thanks.
Trustee Brown?
Yeah, I just have one thing, and Mark kind of led into it. That's for Clerk Cody. I'd like to say thank you for your service on that planning commission. I know you put a lot of time into that, especially when you were going through all the voting stuff. And then when Mark just touched base on that 50% grant, outstanding. That is a great job. And I also wanted to throw it out there. I know you got a busy schedule coming up with these elections. If I can be of any assistance or help you in any way, carry a box or something, I'm just kind of a deadbeat, but if I can help you in any way, just please reach out to me and I will do what I can if I have time. Okay, Coach Purdy?
Oh, I will do that.
All right. Thank you very much for your service.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Deadbeat Brown.
Yes. At least for a few more days.
Trustee Hout?
I had 3, but I had 5, but I took 2 off. Make it a little faster here.
He's got 4.
I know I had discussed like cleanup day earlier. Mark, if we set a date for our cleanup day?
We have not, but we do know it's going to be in the fall.
Okay.
Okay, well, yeah, because I just went to that one for the county. And luckily I was one of the first like 20 cars because that thing was packed. All right, one thing I want to say is I'm proud of this board. And the reason I'm saying this is I don't know if any of us have missed a meeting since we've been on this board. And I'm not used to that. I mean, I remember on our previous board, one night we had to make a call to another board member to make sure we were going to have 4 people at our meeting. I think our citizens should be proud of us. And then the last thing I have, speaking of citizens, I just want to encourage them to participate more. I mean, I hope we can get back to regular meetings. I mean, maybe next month. And have people come to our meetings. It gives us courage to say things, and just, I'd like to see more citizens participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Trustee Bills?
I agree 100%, Bill. I think, we got to get back to in-person meetings, and on just piggybacking on that newsletter you were talking about, if we could send out a newsletter with like a business reply card where our consumers could tell us what they want, just briefly, we could compile that and we could report that back to the board twice a year or whatever, But I think that would be great, because I am totally down with that. We need to have better communication with the citizens. That's all.
You're here. I had nothing on my list, but now I have 7. I'm teasing. Hey, when people send their ends to Mark, without getting into discussion over email, because that's against the law, would you mind carboning the board? Because I would like a copy of everybody's.
I already did mine, man. You can't have it now.
I'd like everybody but Connie's, if you're willing to share. I wrote yours down, Connie. I just couldn't. I couldn't
I'll
keep.
send it to you guys. Sorry about that.
I did forget to mention during board reports that we do have an intergovernmental meeting coming up, and I actually have a client meeting during that time, which I think I'm going to be able to reschedule. And I think, Lisa, you're going to be right. Is that going to work?
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't remember the date, but it's middle June, right?
Monday, isn't it?
Is it that soon? Anyways, that's coming up soon.
Monday, it is June, but it's on a Monday, I think.
In any event,
next Monday.
It's soon, and we'll report out after we have that. So the county will be there, the city will be there, tribe will be there. I'm trying to remember who else.
Is that a Zoom?
It is. So anyways, I'm looking forward to that, and I just neglected to mention that earlier. My apologies.
Hey, are we invited to go to that too?
What's that?
Can we go to that too? I mean, can we attend it as the public?
Mark, I don't know the answer to that even. Do you?
No.
Oh.
It's not a public meeting.
Okay.
There's not any quorum. It's the intergovernmental liaison group. The Board of Trustees appointed Clerk Cody and Supervisor Melke to represent the township. So it's June 14th, by the way.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking mid-June, but and then regarding just the hybrid meeting that was brought up earlier, I just wanted to ask the question is, you were kind of exploring that prior to COVID. Do you have a better feeling do we have the technology to provide something like that, where if we had an in-person meeting and if the law allowed it, a board member could attend remotely and or public could attend them remotely? Do you know the answer to that?
So it was explored some after COVID started. And right now, my recollection is we do not have the technology to do both in-person and remote meetings. And as we're looking into that, we determined we didn't have it, and that it would actually be kind of complicated to make it happen. I think we want to pursue that, because that's just going to be the wave of the future one way or the other. But it's not something that would happen overnight. And it's primarily to benefit the citizens interacting with the board. the law is pretty clear. Unless there's only a few options where a board member could actively participate in a board meeting electronically. Though that's very limited.
And I knew that was before, and I didn't know if there were changes that have happened because of that. I just didn't know.
Yeah, there were some changes made to the Open Meetings Act that one allows for this. As time goes by, it narrows. And I believe it's at the end of 2022 that it essentially all goes back to the old reasons, military being the biggest one.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we have nothing left on our agenda. No closed session. So I'd be happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by everybody and Hauk. Lifting you up so we have someone named as supporter. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, keep your hand up.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
You too.